Dear learners, once again, welcome to this online course in effective communication skills for personal and professional development. In Module 2, Enhancing Communication Skills Theory and Praxis, I'm going to talk about impactful speaking skills today. This is a quick outline of today's lecture. And before we proceed to talk about speaking skills, I would like to mention some of the motivational quotable statements from the thinking of great scholars in order to highlight how important speaking skills are in our life. So Emerson writes, speech is power, speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel. For Oliver Wendell, speak clearly if you speak at all. Carve every word before you let it fall. So it is being said here that before we express, before we speak, each word needs to be weighed before uttering it. Similarly, we find that Mark Twain is saying that it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. So he is highlighting how our previous knowledge, how our previous training, how sound reflection is very important before every time we speak. Likewise, we find Mahatma Gandhi saying that speak only if it improves upon the silence. So speak only when it is necessary to speak. If your work could be done through silence, then maintain silence. On the whole, what these statements intend to highlight is the importance of speaking skills in our life. As we all know that both humans as well as non-human creatures are endowed with the ability to communicate. We all communicate, but fortunately, only human beings are given this ability to speak. So, this is a great gift of nature to us. If it is such a valuable gift, then we should also treat it carefully. Speaking skills, as we understand, refer to the ability to express thoughts, ideas, and feelings verbally in a clear, confident, and effective manner. As we are born with the ability to speak, everybody speaks, we all speak, but there are some people, when they speak, people want to listen to them. On the other hand, there are some people who speak, but nobody wants to pay attention. What I mean to say here is that this is what refers to speaking skills. So everybody speaks, but some people speak skillfully. In order to have impactful speech, it is very necessary that we have certain features, certain aspects in our mind. For example, pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, good knowledge of grammar, stress, intonation, and above all, a good speaker is one who knows the art of engaging with the audience. So, our speech should not only be meaningful, but it should also be such that people are interested in listening to us. It is primarily oral and involves the medium of sound. So, it makes it clear that in order to have good spoken skills, it is necessary to have good listening skills as well. So, regarding this very important skill of communication, that is speech, we are going to have more discussions further. If we talk about the importance of speaking skills, some of the features I have already mentioned, but then we also see that it leads to effective oral communication. When we meet our friends, we do not start writing letter. When we are meeting our colleagues, we begin by greeting them. So it is oral communication of all the four skills which is of great significance because we initiate our conversation or communication through speech. It helps us in confidence building. When we are able to speak our ideas clearly and effectively, it certainly raises our confidence. It is very helpful in career advancement. There are many job avenues where those who can speak effectively, those who are good communicators in terms of speech, are given preference. In terms of building relationship with our friends, family members, our peer group, our colleagues, or people in the surrounding in general, it plays a very important role. At the same time, if we have to convince somebody with our ideas, if we have to impress or influence someone, then also effective speaking skills play very significant role. Now, when we are referring to communication through speech, then we know that words are the building blocks. Therefore, it is very necessary that we do not overlook the role of vocabulary in our speech. If we have good range of words in our mind, if we have learnt words remarkably, then our expression through speech becomes very smooth and effective. Therefore, 5S approach we may refer to with regard to vocabulary. First is sight. And as you can make out, here is a reference to spellings. If we know the correct spelling of the words, then we will not only be able to write correctly, but it will be helpful to know the correct pronunciation. Sound is next very important thing. We need to know how to pronounce each word in a given language correctly. Source. We also need to know the root or the origin of the words, because there are many words which are in the form of roots, and out of the same root word, new words are created. Then we need to have sense of the words that we know. Many times it is seen that people with the help of dictionary memorize certain words, but they do not know its true meaning and how it has to be used in the correct context. That also they do not know. So therefore, the knowledge of syntax is equally important, where we learn how to frame sentences correctly and how to make use of rules of grammar in order to be correct and authentic in our expression. So with respect to vocabulary, these 5S we need to keep in mind. When we are referring to good conversation, mastering over vocabulary or learning new words will certainly be helpful, but that is not the only thing. Therefore, there are certain maxims of good conversation: quality, quantity, relation, and manner. When we are speaking, we need to know whether our speech is quantitative or not. It means the message that we are trying to communicate and transmit, whether it has correct information or not, whether it has some valid ideas or not. Similarly, it is also necessary to focus on the quality of speech, because it should be truthful, it should be correct. If the message that we are delivering or transmitting is not true, is not correct, then certainly it will lead to the failure of communication. Similarly, relevance is very important. Many times people speak just for the sake of speaking. We should refrain from that practice. We should be careful in terms of assessing the relevance of our communication. If it is relevant, then only we should speak, otherwise not. And manner is next very important aspect. Many times the ideas that we want to transmit or communicate, they are good, but they may be relevant also, they may be truthful as well, they may be informative, but our manner of articulation, if is not correct, if we are not very clear, if we are not straightforward, if we are not polite in our expression, then that can also lead to the failure of communication process. So therefore, there are certain strategies that we can practice in order to develop effective speaking skills in us. First thing first is practice regularly. The more we speak, the more we practice this language in terms of speech, more we will learn and become comfortable. So we know that practice is key to success. And here also, it is very necessary that we do. That is why people advise the learners that if possible, you stand in front of the mirror and speak, having this assumption that the audience is there and you are interacting with them. So, therefore, practicing regularly is important. Active listening is very important because it is through active listening that we not only get the message, we not only get the knowledge, but we also get to learn how to articulate certain words, how to speak certain sentences. Expanding vocabulary is important that we have just learned, and thinking before we speak is also very important. And then seeking feedback. So I delivered my talk, my job is over. That should not be the approach. I should try to know whether what I wanted to communicate through my speech has been communicated properly or not. So seeking feedback is also very important. As a matter of practice, the learner can prepare something in mind and speak in front of a family member or a friend, and then may take feedback in order to improve upon that art or that skill. When we are referring to impactful speech, then we may also refer to the principles, the 6 key principles which scholar John Adair has referred to. One is clarity. The communication through speech should be clear, and then there should be proper preparation of that speech before articulation. Simplicity is very important. We should try not to be very complex. If we will be very complex in articulation, in our expression, then the message will not be communicated properly and correctly. Vividness, variety is the spice of life, it is said. So it is also very necessary that we don't be repetitive. We should try to maintain diversity, variety in our speech and expression. Conciseness and naturalness are other 2 important principles. So let us try to be natural in our expression. It should not appear that we are speaking with effort. It should not appear that we are not able to relate to the content that we are delivering. So it is very necessary that we are natural in our expression. There can be different types of speaking skills, having different objectives and purpose. For example, conversational. Mostly we practice speaking skills for conversational purposes. So in our interpersonal communication, in our day-to-day conversation, it becomes very useful. For public speaking, we need to learn specific speaking skills, how to address the mass, how to deliver our ideas and information correctly, how to appeal to the audience in mass. For all that purposes, it is necessary that we learn certain skills. It has to be informative. At times, our speech is to only deliver some data, some information, some figures. It can be for the persuasive purposes. Extempore. You might have seen that in schools, some competitions, extempore speech. This kind of competition is organized to develop the ability in the students that instantly, immediately, without prior preparation, in limited minutes or time, they can formulate ideas in their mind and they can express. So this is also a form of speech, and it is very effective. Group discussion in corporate setup and at times for job recruitment also. Group discussion is a format to evaluate the merits of the candidates, and otherwise also in our public meeting, in our official meetings, having 3 to 20 members, 30 members in a group, we engage in conversation, and it is also requiring good speaking skills. For interview purposes, for job recruitment, where questions are asked based on the expertise, based on the subject, and there also effective speaking skills help us in achieving success. TED Talk, as we see, because we are in the world of digital technology, we can see that this is also one very powerful mode of speaking skills. So, if you can be an influencer, if you can be a good communicator through your speech, then TED Talks would really be offering you a platform through which you can inspire others, you can motivate others. So, these are different forms of speaking skills, and we need to know about them. And as per the requirement, we need to practice certain skills. There are some measures, common measures, which as a speaker we should keep in mind. Say, for example, we should know the language first. It can be English, it can be German, it can be Bangla, it can be any language of the world in which we are trying to speak and converse. So, the most important thing is that we know the language first, and we also know the audience. A gentle smile on the face and eye contact plays wonderful role in enhancing the impact of our speech, because it shows that we are confident. At the same time, as a speaker, if it is a public speech or if it is in a formal setup that we are speaking, or maybe as a teacher in the classroom we are interacting with the students, it is very useful if we can connect the listener, we can connect the audience with personal experiences or some anecdote or some story that way. As you begin saying, once upon a time, people are immediately becoming attentive to listen to you. So even if we grow up, we have this natural tendency to enjoy stories. So we can, as a public speaker, one can begin with a short story or some anecdote or some personal experience, and that is very helpful in connecting with the audience, drawing their attention towards us as speakers. Pace of speech and body language again plays very important role. We should try to avoid affectation, particularly when we are trying to speak a foreign language or a language which is not our mother tongue. We try to imitate native speakers, but if the imitation is not correct, not proper, it may lead to imitation. So that should be avoided, and we should try to be natural. Simplicity, clarity, tone, our volume, and the variety again plays an important role. Pauses and about them. So if we do not follow them, if we do not practice pauses and punctuation in our speech, meaningful, and certainly the process of communication will not be without feedback. There are other techniques also which a learner can practice, we can follow. For example, shadowing. Nowadays, we have a lot of videos on YouTube and other platforms, and from there we may try to learn the accent, and shadowing, imagining yourself as that speaker and trying to practice that manner of articulation, that can be helpful. Another technique that we can use is that will help us identify the mistakes, the shortcomings, and maybe in the next attempt it can be removed and it can be improved. Reading aloud is very important. We should always encourage learners to read aloud. Silently, as I have mentioned, had its own objective to achieve. But as far as reading aloud is concerned, it helps us confidence. We speak, when we are reading aloud, we are listening to the speaking. So that is a good exercise, beautiful technique. audio-visual aids can be helpful. Recorders we can use. We can also use some pictures, some situation, and try to give it. Also be very helpful in learning speaking skills. And try to speak accordingly. And we can also note down whether we are maintaining proper pause or not, whether we are able to maintain our appropriate pitch or not, whether the intonation is right or not. Particularly speech when we talk about. As I just mentioned, that when we record, then we also notice our pauses, whether we are following it correctly or not. So, not only that the linguistic features are important when we are contained in the words, they get transferred and transmitted because of these features. So, we have stress, intonation, pause, volume. If I speak very delivered. Similarly, volume also matters. Speak very loud, then it will fail to the listener. But if it is very low volume, then also it's very difficult for listeners to understand what we are saying. All these play very important role. Very briefly, I would like to give a kind of illustration. I'm referring here to English language, and we see that accent or stress plays very important role. Lies in stress or the use of correct accent. So it is basically the for basic understanding. If we try to know what is syllable, then it is the basic unit of speech. Sounds, sometimes consonants too. So for example, pa, ba, no, the consonant sounds that these are the basic speech sounds, and they are forming this. That's very important because in each word we have the syllables, and accordingly we have to discuss and learn where stress would fall. Have compound words like these, then we can see that the stress will fall on the bone, its backbone. So we don't have to pronounce the next word gold. The correct pronunciation is defined largely by how correctly we are using the ever or self. The stress falls on the second element. So it is whenever, it is yourself. ION, and you can see that the stress will fall on the penultimate syllable. So it will not be examination. So all such words which end with ION, you can remember the rule that the stress will be pronounced. Then we have these examples too. So in case of the word that you have here ending with MENT, syllable. So it will become development, engagement, recruitment. So in case we are pronouncing such words incorrectly on right syllable or not. Similarly, the words ending with LOGY, logy. So it will be pronounced as zoology. These are some basic rules of pronunciation which if we practice certainly able to not only pronounce correctly, but necessary for the listener as well, because our wrong pronunciation will lead to wrong communication message. So, as you can see, that if the words are ending with ate, then where the stress has to be put with these suffixes, then the rule will be followed in this manner. And we should also long stress not just lead to confusion with regard, but it can also the very of the number to which the word belongs. So it is very necessary that we know the of using stress in a word, and we also know how to pronounce. Linguistic aspect which is very important is intonation, because the mood of the speaker is defined intonation. So it defines the emotion and mood of the speaker. So whether the speaker is irritated, the speaker is commanding, or the speaker is rebuking, so all these moods will be expressed. So we can have falling tone and we can have rising tone. When we are asking questions like this, we are expressing warmth or friendliness, then we can see that there will be the rising tone. Explore further in order to understand intonation, stress, and the other aspects. By way of conclusion, on the basis of the discussion that we had so far, then these are the points which we should keep in mind. If we talk about our mother tongue, then also we should honestly ask ourselves, do we have learned to have mastery over our mother tongue the way it is? So if we begin a new language, certainly it will, but with practice, nothing is impossible. And it is also very necessary. Doesn't matter we know two languages in the of the world or not. If we can, then always we advance. But then always have confidence in what we are speaking, what we know. So whether it's language, other language, if it's language, then with practice, learn it, and the more we practice, we have more confidence. We also need to increase our exposure to L2. L2 refers to learn. So we need to increase our exposure. Try to be with that language for as much as we talk about English language. Then we can watch podcast with English subtitle. We can watch our movies surrounding that environment where people practice or use that language. So we can increase, as we find in case of direct method of schools, as we see that children from KG classes or nursery classes, they are asked to speak in that very language. So what happens, because of the repeated exposure to that new language or that L2, that language becomes easy and natural. Practice is indeed very important, and then, listen, read, not that these different skills are separate entities. They're all interconnected. So we should practice them accordingly. Today, in a world where there are a lot of resources available for us, so we can make use of the films, podcasts, news, and other effective communication skills, impactful speaking skills. Some role play, draw and describe, chain game. The video is just to give you some idea about place here, and if it is not properly done, understanding, it may lead to realization. Effect always possible, understanding. So this is, but the activity for you is role play, so you can be in some role and then frame few sentences, speak. The next exercise could be draw and describe any image. If we are referring to this activity with regard to children, then they may given to draw some article and then describe it. The grown-ups can take a picture, any image they can take, and they can try to describe it in a language which they want. And this is how effective communication skills can be learned. And then chain game, it can be an interesting pastime for you. For 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you have to go on picking words after words and put it like a chain as we play Antakshari. So these are some activities which would certainly be fun to you. Please practice them, and they will also help you to improve your speaking skills. Here we have some additional reading sources. You may refer to these links. British Council website is here, and it can be very helpful to you in learning language skills, particularly English, and then others are also very helpful. Thank you.